We often hear, "Let sleeping dogs lie," often referring to allowing the past to simply be the past. But, much like a dog, it will wake up, and all of a sudden you're going to find out exactly how sharp their teeth are.
What's that? You want to be scared? Come with me. You will experience tales of horror, ghosts, and death. It is not recommended for the weak at heart. Listen in the dark. It's more fun that way. This is Weekly Spooky.
Hello, my spookies. It's Wednesday, and you know what that means. It's time for a little spooky in your weekly. I'm your host and narrator, Enrique Couto, and my. It's that time again. Time for another delightfully devious mini-series. That's right, this is the first episode of Prom Night of the Dead. But before we get to that story, I want to let you in on a little secret. This Friday, right here on Weekly Spooky, we're debuting a brand new program. One that I think you'll really enjoy, especially if you love the spooky stories and the spooky movies the way I do. It's called Cutting Deep into Horror. Myself and my co-host Celise are going to talk about many different horror films and what their meanings are and what the meaning is to us as people. We're going to dig deep. We're going to talk about expressions of horror and terror and trauma and abuse, all kinds of things that make scary movies scary. I'm really excited about this first episode, so I hope you check it out this Friday and enjoy it. And hey, we'll do a new episode about every month or so. Maybe even more if you all tune in. But now, my spookies, it's about time to start part 1 of Prom Night of the Dead. So get yourself comfortable, get yourself cozy, make sure you're subscribed on your favorite podcasting service, and while you're there, leave us a 5-star rating. We have over 200 ratings on Spotify and 160 on Apple Podcasts. Help us out, it doesn't cost you anything. And it helps make people discover the program and give it a listen. Oh, my dear, though, I guess even though it's summer, school is about to be back in session after these quick words. Prom Night of the Dead, Part 1, by Rob Fields. Prologue, Prom Night. 2 months ago, Lillian Johansson and her boyfriend, Randy Ullery, were dancing to a slow song in the Strickfield High School gymnasium, where the junior and senior prom was being held. As Lillian looked around, she saw that many people were in attendance from both classes. She easily saw the beautiful and busty Taylor Mirren, the previous year's junior crown winner, and knew she would easily win the senior prom queen crown too. Just as Taylor Mirren was the frontrunner for her class's crown, Lillian felt deep down that she would win the junior class crown. The day when Principal Matthew Van Diest announced the nominees for the junior class crown, he called out Lillian's name first. Lillian had dreamed of this moment ever since she had seen the family photo album of her aunt and the current Strickfield High drama instructor, Devin Decker, after she won the senior class crown years ago. Lillian was a spitting image of Anne Hathaway from her Disney years, and was the complete opposite of Taylor Mirren in almost every way. Lillian was one of the nicest girls you would ever meet. While she didn't come from money and prestige the way her senior class counterpart did, she believed in her morals and felt they would carry her to becoming a prom queen. As Lillian danced with Randy, she was happy that he was there for her. Lillian had known Randy since the 6th grade. They became a couple midway through 8th grade, and now here they were at their first of 2 proms. Randy and Lillian were a power couple in the junior class. Randy himself was the son of Philip Ullery, who was known as the friendliest mailman in Strickfield, and was also a village councilman. This made Randy a popular student by default. Also, he was just as nice as Lillian. When the slow song was finished and Randy and Lillian decided to leave the gymnasium for a little bit, the two of them went into a dark part of the hallway and talked. Soon they started making out. Lillian had promised herself she would give Randy her virginity once they had left the prom and went to their hotel room. Suddenly, they stopped kissing when they both felt they weren't alone. They turned and saw Lillian's older sister, Cameron, leaning up against a wall and staring hard at them. "Seriously? What do you want now?" Lillian demanded. Cameron moved from the wall and smirked. "Randy, you do realize my sister couldn't give 2 shits about you, right?" Lillian became angry and tightened her fists. "Cameron, just leave us alone, please!" Cameron laughed a little. "Leave you alone? You have something that belongs to me, little sister." She pointed at Lillian. "You were the one who stole Randy from me. You knew how I felt about him, and you didn't care. You just take! Lillian shook her head quickly. "No, I didn't get arrested for stealing and starting fights because you found out about Randy and me. You going to juvie was all on you." Cameron pointed at her. "Because of you, and thanks to you, all my college applications were rejected. Now I gotta take summer school if I want to graduate here. Then it's only gonna be some stupid community college in North Ridgeway for me. All because you had to steal Randy away from me. So, what? You found out he was going away to college, so you fuck me over by stealing Randy so you can get out of this shithole village?" Cameron came and got in Randy's face. "I mean it. Dump Lillian, or she'll dump you when you can't give her what she wants anymore." Randy groaned and pushed her away. "Just leave Lillian alone." Cameron retaliated by grabbing Randy's shoulders and kneeing him hard in the groin, sending him to his knees. "You won't ever have to worry about having kids with my baby sister if you ever touch me again like that." She backed away. "Go ahead, stay with Lillian. Like I said, she'll leave you when you least expect it." She laughed scornfully and walked away from them. Lillian sighed sadly as she helped Randy up. "We both love you, and you chose me. I can't believe she got so violent when you did. She never used to be like that." Randy put gentle hands on her shoulders. "Don't blame yourself, Lillian. She made her choices and went to juvie in Pendleton for them." She sighed again. "You're right." Their eyes met, and they kissed passionately again. The more they kissed, the more Lillian knew she could wait no longer. When they stopped kissing, Lillian took Randy's hand. "Let's go somewhere where we can be alone." Lillian and Randy went into one of the many empty classrooms. Lillian pulled the door shut and turned to face Randy, who was now transfixed by her beautiful smile. Then she approached him to help him remove his tux jacket. As Randy started to unzip her dress in the back, they heard some loud ruckus in the next classroom over. "Oh, come on," Lillian groaned. "Really?" As she moved away from Randy, he reached out for her. "Lillian, don't." Lillian reached the door and opened it to hear screaming as Cheryl Blint, one of the senior class prom queen candidates, ran right past her, holding up the skirt of her dress as she booked it barefoot down the hallway. "What the?" Lillian muttered. "Lillian, come on," Randy protested. "Get back in here." As Lillian pulled the door shut, Laura Lee Hardy, another senior class prom queen candidate, suddenly appeared right in front of her. Lillian saw Laura Lee's jaw was tightened. What was more, Laura Lee had a knife. Lillian's eyes opened wide as her life flashed right before her eyes. Before Lillian could move away, before Randy could move to try and save her, Laura Lee Hardy raised the knife and ran it across Lillian's throat, slicing through her delicate skin like warm butter. Lillian gurgled as she held her hand to her new gushing smile, but Laura Lee wasn't finished just yet. "Stupid slut," Laura Lee muttered in a deeper, manly voice as she grabbed Lillian by the back of her hair and quickly stabbed her in the stomach 3 times. Then Laura Lee shoved Lillian to the floor and continued her pursuit of Cheryl Blint to the gymnasium and the prom itself. Randy was quickly on his smartphone to 911 to yell for an ambulance for Lillian. Not that it would have mattered. After dropping the phone, he dropped to Lillian and cradled her slain, bloody body in his arms. "Oh, God, Lillian, no!" He choked through tears. Randy held Lillian until the paramedics had finally arrived for her. When they officially confirmed her death, Randy continued to hold her body as he sobbed and cried. Finally, Randy relinquished Lillian to the paramedics for them to take her to the Strickfield General Hospital's morgue. 2 months later, Monday morning, Ronnie Brunswick walked into Strickfield High the very next day after graduation. She quickly had to turn around and flick the cigarette she had in her mouth back outside. After coming back in, she blew out the menthol smoke she held in her lungs right inside the building. "Fucking hell," Ronnie muttered. She walked the hallway until she came to room 12, where she was to begin summer school. "Rhonda Brunswick, glad you could make it. And on time," Principal Matthew Van Diest cheered when she walked in. She glared at him with utter hatred. "The name's Ronnie, and you can get fucked." Principal Van Diest was used to Ronnie's outbursts, as well as her choice of words. She flipped him off and started to walk to the back. No, Rhonda," Principal Van Diest called out. When she turned around, he pointed to a chair at the very front. "This seat, right here, has your name on it. Sit." Ronnie tightened her jaw and resumed going to the back. "I'll fucking piss where I please." As soon as she sat down, Principal Van Diest gestured her way. "Rhonda here, like a few of you, are in my class because, simply put, you won't graduate if you don't pass either government or economics. Now, some of you are juniors getting a head start on senior year, which is great. People like Rhonda are here because they can't be bothered to come to school. Rhonda is also under a plea bargain with Strickfield PD. She has to take my classes and pass both of them to graduate. If she doesn't pass, she doesn't graduate. If she doesn't graduate, she goes right to prison at Glenview for prostitution. Isn't that right, Rhonda? Now come up here and sit, or I'll just flunk you right here and now. Then you can write me hate mail from your prison cell." Ronnie was heaving by the time he finished and shot up. "I'm gonna fucking kill you!" As she started to rush at him, a guy quickly got out of his seat and wrapped his arms around her, hugging her close to keep her from Principal Van Diest. "Just stop," the guy said calmly in her ear. "Let me go!" Ronnie yelled. "You want to go to prison?" the guy asked her, still quite calm. "Is he really worth it?" The guy continued to hold Ronnie close until he felt her heaving slow and finally stop. He stepped back and looked her in the face, She looked back at him. When he saw he had diffused her, he stepped aside and let her walk to the seat Principal Van Diest had reserved just for her. Before she sat down, she pointed right at Van Diest. "Don't be staring at my fucking tits!" When Ronnie sat, she glared at the principal as she folded her arms in front of her, pushing up her already evident breasts more. "Thank you, Derek," Principal Van Diest said to the guy who stopped Ronnie from attacking him. Ronnie looked around and saw some of the people she would be in room 12 with for 30 summer school days, 15 for government, 15 for economics, with July 4th being on a Saturday. Unfortunately for her, she needed to pass both classes if she wanted to both graduate Strickfield High and not go straight to prison. It was no secret to some students that Ronnie Brunswick was a girl who came up hard. She lived on her own in an apartment at Strickfield Cove, the very same apartment Laura Lee Hardy lived by. By this time, Laura Lee Hardy came to be known as the Prom Queen Killer, and the creator of the event that would be forever known around Strickfield as the Prom from Hell. Ronnie couldn't wait to move into the apartment upon hearing this, especially since the landlord offered her discounted rent and free utilities just to fill that particular, seemingly unfillable vacancy. Some students actually believed that Laura Lee Hardy was possessing Ronnie, which made her laugh. Ronnie was also a drug dealer and a self-employed prostitute. She certainly dressed the part with her halter top that barely contained her breasts, her denim booty shorts, and her stiletto heels. She wore dark eyeshadow, blush, lip gloss, and nail polish. Her dyed mix of silver and black hair certainly added to her sex appeal. Ronnie definitely had no problem finding clients willing to pay her rates. It was at a campus fraternity party where Detective Drake Kazmarek had arrested her for prostitution while going undercover at Strickfield University. This wasn't Ronnie's first meeting with Detective Kazmarek. Ronnie had been arrested for vandalizing Principal Van Diest's house when she spray-painted choice words in artistic graffiti fashion on the front of his house and garage. Detective Kazmarek had been on his way back to the station after wrapping up a case and had seen Ronnie finishing her artwork. Ronnie was a minor at the time and was sent to the Pendleton Juvenile Detention Center. Now, Ronnie was an adult when Detective Kazmarek caught her prostituting herself at Strickfield University. He learned that Ronnie was academically smart, even though she was a troublemaker. She started off high school on the right path and was smart enough to be able to skip sophomore year. After that, she seemed to make a complete 180. Not only did Ronnie get worse, she was on the verge of not graduating, and prison now. After talking to and listening to Detective Kazmarek, the judge decided not to send Ronnie to prison and offered her an alternative sentence. She would go to summer school and pass the 2 classes she needed for graduation, pay for the damages to Principal Van Diest's property, and perform community service. Failure to adhere to any of those conditions would result in her losing her probation and going straight to the Glenview Correctional Facility outside of North Ridgeway. Now here she was, right in front of the man she hated. Sure, she would pass his classes, but she was definitely going to have some fun with him along the way. Also, she had business with some of the students in that very classroom. Ronnie immediately saw Primrose Mirren and laughed inside at the thought of the rich girl being an airhead. She knew Primrose never opened a textbook. Not once. No, she was too busy on her smartphone and getting popular on social media, which got her sent to Principal Van Diest's office several times. She could dress like a proper princess, but what good was it if you didn't have book smarts? And then there was Samuel Wormton, the worm to most everybody. No doubt he was there to get the credits so he could graduate early. Ronnie knew he had made good money off many students by writing papers and doing homework assignments for them. How many times had Ronnie seen Primrose Mirren, giving him money? Ronnie also knew the two of them liked each other. She knew Randy Ullery, but who didn't? He was one of the most popular students at Strickfield High. She kind of felt sorry for him about what had happened with Lillian Johansson. Sure, Randy and Ronnie had butted heads on occasion, but even she felt that Lillian didn't deserve what had happened to her at the prom from hell. When it came to Randy, it seemed he was finally moving on from Lillian and was now seeing her older sister, Cameron. Ronnie knew Cameron from Pendleton. In fact, the two of them were roommates. Ronnie and Cameron fought quite a bit, which got them in trouble several times. Cameron earned Ronnie's respect when she had a chance to rat her roommate out for smoking pot she had stashed away. Cameron lied and said she never saw Ronnie smoking anything. Ronnie got away with it, and the two girls started getting along better after that. They even started watching each other's backs at Pendleton. For now, Cameron was okay in Ronnie's book. Now Ronnie gazed upon Derek Masters, the guy who had just saved her from possibly going to prison for murder one. She felt her heart skipping beats now. For one thing, he had a great smell. 2, what a physique. 3, he wasn't afraid to touch her. And his voice, just the way it cut through her rage. Maybe it was more than just a crush when he looked her way and smiled a little. She quickly faced front and felt her heart skipping even more beats. Maybe summer school wasn't going to be so bad, after all. When Principal Van Diest gave everyone a break at the first hour, Ronnie planned on going outside to smoke a cigarette. As she reached the main doors, she saw some students from her class and one from a different class gathered around in the library. Curiosity got the better of Ronnie, and all eyes went right to her as she entered. "Like what you see?" she snapped, pushing up on her breasts. "Just looking at a yearbook left here," Regal Fairlane, the preppy girl who wasn't in her class, told her. Ronnie knew Regal was a member of the National Honor Society. She wasn't looking to graduate early, however. She was taking driver's education with Mr. Austin Zachary. She just never had the time when she should have taken it at 16 with all the coursework she was doing. She was finally learning to drive now. Ronnie herself knew a few things about Regal that the other students didn't. Things Regal could get into serious trouble for. Ronnie had her reasons for keeping quiet about her, however. Ronnie also recognized Bill Baxter, a guy who couldn't care less about keeping his grades up, which was why his parents enrolled him in summer school, again. Bill was a senior who failed both government and economics during the regular school year and had to take and pass Principal Van Diest's classes if he wanted to graduate. Also, Randy Ullery and his girlfriend, Cameron Johansson, were among them. Randy was obviously taking Van Diest's classes to not have to take them senior year. Ronnie humored herself and looked at the yearbook with the others. Ronnie knew she had her own popularity compared to the jocks, preps, and others in the yearbooks, thanks to her looks and her gorgeous body. She also had connections and planned on following up on some of them once she got out from under Principal Van Diest's iron glare. It wasn't long before the pages for the prom were revealed. The first 2 pages showed all of the candidates from both the junior and senior classes that were taken after Van Diest had announced them. Ronnie was laughing when she saw someone had written "Prom from Hell" across both pages. Also, "Prom Queen Killer" was written with arrows pointing to Laura Lee Hardy in both her solo and group pictures. "Something funny?" Randy demanded. Ronnie smirked. "Yeah. It's funny what these fucking stupid-ass girls will do for plastic crowns. Even kill each other for 'em." Randy was more upset now. You think this is all funny? He pointed to the picture of Lillian Johansson. She was my girlfriend. Ronnie laughed again and pointed to Cameron. And now you're fucking her? Wow. Talk about keeping it in the family. Imagine what Lillian will say when she finds you two together. Or didn't you read in the Strickfield Journal her body disappeared from the hospital morgue after it was brought there? Cameron Johansson pointed right at her. You just stop, or I'll kick your fucking ass again, just like back in Pendleton. Roomie. Ronnie rolled her eyes. Bitch, please. I beat your ass just as many times. She looked at Randy. Did your new girlfriend here tell you how many times we kept each other warm at night in Pendleton? When Randy suddenly went for Ronnie, she raised her fists. Even though she felt sorry for Randy losing Lillian the way he did, she wasn't above fighting him. The others quickly got in between them. That was when Ronnie suddenly felt arms wrapping around her for the second time that morning. She turned around to see Derek Masters. The moment their eyes met, and she smelled his scent again, Ronnie was diffused for the second time. Her heart started fluttering again. You don't want to get in trouble again, he told her softly. Derek took her hand and walked her out of the library. But I do, she said weakly. She was powerless to fight Derek and let him take her outside. Derek watched her light up a cigarette and smirked. Sensing he liked her, Ronnie gave him a warm smile that told him she'd like to get to know him better, too. Week 1. Monday night. It was the first night of the Feltner County Fair, one of 2 county fairs in Strickfield. The Feltner County Fair commenced the week after the school year was over, with the Strickfield County Fair taking place the week before the school year began. Many people were enjoying the festivities and eating fair food. Regal Fairlane walked around the fair until she slipped into the empty stadium and went underneath the bleachers. When she saw her summer school teacher, she smiled brightly as he approached. Regal and Austin Zachary held each other tight as they kissed passionately. Regal had been in love with Austin since she first took classes with him during the regular school year. It was on her 18th birthday that Austin kept Regal after school and surprised her by kissing her. From there, he had secretly taken Regal to his house where they slept together and began their heated, forbidden love affair. I love you, Regal, Austin said after they finished kissing. I love you, she breathed. Then he took her hand. Let's ride through the haunted house together. Regal nodded quickly. Then they made their way to the attraction's ticket booth, where Austin paid the admission. They got into their waiting car and were soon moving along. Regal and Austin kissed hungrily as they slowly moved through the spooky scenes. After Austin whispered in her ear, the two of them left the car. Shortly after, Austin took Regal inside one of the pieces of scenery. The spooky music and sounds concealed their loud moans as they undressed each other and continued their forbidden passion until the ride was finally shut down, telling them that the fair was closing. They got dressed and left the haunted house without being caught. It was quite windy and cloudy. They weren't sure if it was going to rain or not, but Austin draped an arm around Regal and held her to him. Then they heard menacing, horrible laughter. What was that? Regal wondered. I don't know, Austin replied. Sounds like a girl. Regal gasped. Look! Austin also gasped when he saw what Regal had seen. It was a glowing, ghostly girl clad in what appeared to be a prom dress. "Is that Lillian Johansson?" Regal choked. "Can't be," Austin countered. "She's dead. The prom queen killer got her." "Yes, Laura Lee Hardy indeed claimed me, Mr. Zachary," the ghostly girl said. Then she pointed to him. "And you two were safe and snug far away when I was being murdered." Lillian looked very angry now. "Don't you know teachers aren't supposed to have relationships with students?" Regal stammered. What does that have to do with you? You were living most sinfully while so many people died on prom night," Lillian snapped. "And now, you are mine." When Lillian let out an ear-piercing scream, Regal and Austin let out their own scream and went back into the haunted house. They both went in opposite directions on impulse. Regal ran through the ride in reverse. She hid and looked to see if Lillian was still chasing her. She had already moved through several scenes without seeing her. Several minutes later, the attraction came to life, making Regal scream. Then she looked up to the hangman's gallows and screamed even more when she saw Austin's slain form hung on the noose as the animatronic hangman laughed its horrible, evil laughter. Regal turned and ran until she escaped the ride, only to run into Lillian's ghost again. "Mr. Zachary belongs to me now," she pointed at Regal. "Live your last sinful moments while you still can. I'll be coming for you soon." Regal's eyes rolled up in her head as she fainted in front of the ghost. Well, it appears something very unexpected is happening at Strickfield High. Something a bit more than just a killer on the loose. The ghost of a wrongly murdered young woman is looking for revenge. And if you want to see where that revenge is going and how it's going to come to fruition, you'll need to tune in next week, same time, same podcast, for part 2 of Prom Night of the Dead. And if you want a little backstory on Prom Night of the Dead, you can check out Prom Queen Killer. It was the first ever miniseries right here on Weekly Spooky, and I know you'll enjoy it. There's actually a compilation of all 4 episodes available on the feed. Just look a couple of episodes back, and you'll find it. But now, my spookies, it's about time for me to wrap things up, but of course, I would never go without thanking you for supporting us on Patreon. It really does help. All you have to do is go to weeklyspooky.com and click on Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you can help us bring the show again and again and again. And an extra special thank you goes to our Patreon podcast boosters, folks who pay just a little bit more to hear their names on the show. And they are Bobbletopia.com, Megan Hua, Julia Kirsch, Brent McCullough, Gino Lyons, Steve King, Karen Weemet, Jack Kerr, and Craig Cohen. Thank you all so much, and if you want to join them, just go to weeklyspooky.com and click on Patreon. But now, my dear friends, it's time for me to get out of here. I have a trip to Chicago this Saturday for a very secret, very spooky film screening, and I wish I could give you details, but I simply can't. So, take care of yourselves, and I'll be right back here on Friday, and then Monday, and then Wednesday, as always. For myself, for my executive producer Rob Fields, my producer Dan Wilder, and our composer Ray Mattis, I will talk at you next time.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to find your way back next week. But for now, you are safe. Trust me.